morning. We'll go ahead and call the regular session and executive session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, also sitting as all special taxing districts, January 22, 2025. Board members will attend either in person, by telephone, or remotely via electronic conferencing. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Supervisor Lyon,
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to call to the public. Call to the public is for public benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or rescheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. Public comments may be made in person or submitted by email at publiccomments@yumacountyaz.gov. The email forms for public comment will be accepted until 8 a.m. the morning of the meeting. All public comments will be read out loud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting that starts at 9 a.m. Desiree, do you have any?
No, we did not have any emails.
I do have a couple of speaker forms, and one of them is for an item on the agenda, so we'll call you when that we have that item up. Tori?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and Supervisors. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you for a moment. It's Amberley's Place 25th year of service to our community, and we want to celebrate that anniversary at our annual gala, which is the February the 8th at the Q Casino. And we have bags with invitations sitting on the dais for you today, and we are so excited to invite you to join us for the gala. It'll be certainly a night of celebration, and one that we're proud and honored to extend an invitation to you. It is only through the community support that we've received and continue to receive that we're able to do the work that we do. 2024 brought us 3,104 primary and secondary victims of abuse in this community. We couldn't do this work without the support of our community and our elected officials. So please let us know if you'd like to join us. And as a point of trivia today, 9 years ago in 2016, we opened the Amberley's Place permanent home in our new building. So it happened 9 years ago today. So thank you, and we hope to see you. Please let us know if you can attend.
Thank you, Tori.
Thank you, Tori.
I'll be there, Tori.
I went last time. It was really fun, and the food was delicious. Go ahead.
Anybody else from the public that wishes to address the board? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and move on to presentations, proclamations, and appointments.
I have an appointment. I need to reappoint Mike Pancrazzi to the Board of Adjustments.
And I need to reappoint Danny Bryant to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And I need to reappoint Mr. Chairman Rosalie Lyons to the Board of Adjustments.
Okay. Noted.
So that Mike can keep fighting with Rosie.
Yeah, Mike, fight with Rosie. It's cute.
Moving on to presentations, item number one. Presentation by Elevate Southwest, President and CEO Jerry Cabrera on this past year's activities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, board members. Thank you very much. Actually, it's been a long road, I guess. It's been 12 years, I think, when this whole initiative started, and I just want to update you where we're at this point, speaking with about 200 stakeholders, some consultants, and we're closer to where we're at now than we were many years ago, many moons ago, especially with a couple of things coming down the pipeline for the whole region itself. So I want to kind of give you a little story of where it all started and where we're ending at this point. One of the major challenges for the region, and I'm talking about as far as the challenges are concerned, it's based on the whole population itself, about 214,000 people in the region, or at least just the county, that our post-secondary education has been lower, meaning associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's, and doctorate degrees have been lower than the state. But that doesn't mean that the whole country is not this way. The whole country is basically on this kind of area itself, but mainly ours. We're worried more about the county more than anybody else. One of the other challenges that we found was that there was a lack of high-tech facilities that we can implement and to assist the economic development in municipalities to attract new businesses in certain key sectors within the county, and especially on the startups and emerging companies that are out there, AI and other high-tech type of companies out there. One was also workforce training, and we're glad that Arizona Western College has been doing a lot of great stuff with the Entrepreneur College, but we also need to focus on the STEM type of careers that we still need to bring in the region itself, especially on certain, like I said, certain industries itself. One of the areas that we found from many of the consultants and the stakeholders was the average salaries, a little bit lower than the county, obviously lower than some of the state itself, I mean, the state and nationally. And thus, challenges are for recruitment and retention that many of our local companies would have. That is, Mike Gowan and other folks in the region would have just to attract these type of personnel. And one of the other major things that we found out from the industry committee and the stakeholders is the lack of branding for the whole region itself. Not necessarily that we're not trying, yes we are, but not as a cohesive unit to make sure that we're talking the same language. If San Luis and or Welton are doing different type of brandings, we got to come together to make sure that we're speaking the same type of information. So the roadmap, how do we get there? Where are we going now? So the first thing was obviously we get some community engagement, which we did 12 years ago. We started again back in 2020. We started working on a strategic plan, making sure everything would work together, including the stakeholders. We also spoke with the education folks, our workforce development, community, obviously, development and integration into the whole system, ecosystem itself, and looked at what key sectors were more stronger than others. We might be trying to bring a microchip, but is that for Yuma County? It might not be. So we looked at those key sectors as well, bring some sort of cultural synergy within this whole region itself, and obviously at the end is to build an innovation hub itself. So we're closer to this than we were many years ago. We're all go through this in terms of where we're at with the financing. It's a 60,000 square foot facility. I know we had been discussing about 75,000, but one of the wings will end up being phase 2, depending on how at least this one building ends up attracting startups and talent and new businesses in itself, in current businesses. Obviously, we'll have academia, labs, and entrepreneur realms, and obviously to advance the type of future employers and obviously the current ones that we currently do have here in the area. So we want to focus on those areas that this will bring. So this is the priority sectors we want to kind of focus on based on the consultants that we had a couple of months ago, and obviously the stakeholders itself. One is AgTech, and AgTech is already here itself. YC is playing a crucial role in this, and we're here more to support them on those key sectors. And obviously aerospace and defense, which I'm going to talk more about this at the end, which has been playing a huge role on YPG and obviously MCAS. Obviously clean energy, which we have a lot of sun, so that's happening. But there's other key sectors within that area, which includes storage batteries. What we have a company in our office, they're doing a flow battery, and it's not lithium. It's more of a different type of chemicals that they're working on to make sure this flow battery does assist in the absence of lithium and or not dangerous as lithium may be. Obviously, one area we kind of were like intrigued was the biomedicine and biotech, which we found out obviously that even Waysida is doing some of this stuff, but there's other areas within the region that are working on the biomedical and biomedicine type of technologies. So those are key sectors that we're going to be focused on in our innovation hub and zone. Even though we have these key sectors, one thing that does kind of cross-reference is obviously the artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, and transport and logistics. It just makes total sense. But even those with these 7 areas, there's always room for advancement in other key sectors that we can bring in the area of artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, and transportation. We do have another company that's working high on artificial intelligence, which is more of a company that's working on the storage from your regular iCloud into a smaller storage capacity. Instead of paying $200 for 2 terabytes or 10 terabytes, this will lower the cost by maybe $100 or $50, depending on the storage itself. It kind of removes a lot of the areas that don't mean anything, pictures and stuff that you may not need. So within that innovation hub and the key sectors, even though we have the innovation hub, the old concept area is south, obviously, of GIS. That includes more of different type of buildings, more of a campus style, but it'll have retail, entertainment, hotels, townhouses, and apartments in itself in order to attract. This is one key area that many of the industries have stated that there was a lack thereof. Not the entire entertainment, but housing has been an issue for many of the professionals coming to the region. Stop me if you have any further questions. So within that whole zone and district, it's an area that many of us want to work, learn, play, live, and ultimately stay. We do have consultants coming in for a couple of months, but ultimately we want them to stay here. We want them to be part of the family of Yuma County, of the family of the region itself. So some of the key goals and priorities that we'll be focusing on is to make sure that we have more access on the post-secondary education. By what we mean with that is that it's not necessarily that we do have NAU, ASU, and U of A, but we need to bring more resources within those universities into the region. I mean, we have great stuff going on right now, but we need more of the STEM type of careers within the region to increase that economic diversification. Obviously, the workforce is huge, the economic diversification based on those resources in the sectors, and ultimately retain and attract talent itself within the region itself. Some of the current initiatives that we're working on is obviously we do have a startup. We have a couple of companies working on just STEM related focus. And so we're helping them make sure that they succeed not only from the beginning, but to the end, and making sure that by the end, meaning that to establish themselves here and hire employees here in the region. We have, like I mentioned, this PowerJewel on the flow battery. He wants to hire about 200 to 300 folks once he gets his battery going. So that's a positive, successful story that hopefully we can turn that out by the end of next year or so. We have we're doing some internships. Internships include veterinarians, nursing, physical therapy. We have folks in finance and in other key areas, mechanical engineering, civil engineering. So we have a couple of those folks in there. We're not huge among because we want to keep it small. We're a small group, so we can't afford to have 30 or 40 kids. And these internships are more of the high school up to college level internships, and we pay them very well, $20 an hour. We want to make sure that we compete. We want to make sure that we compete with some of the local retail folks. So Starbucks, even I think McDonald's are at $18 or $19 an hour. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. But even in and out, they're paying $21, $22 an hour. So we want to make sure we compete in these type of initiatives. We have obviously the STEM exploration programs. We work closely with STEADY and the high school in Arizona Western College and NAU. In YPG, the other is obviously we do have a STEM Road podcast. Hopefully you guys can listen. On our STEM Road podcast, it focuses on the STEM career, and we have a student interested in that career. We have kind of an exploration of how that person got to where they're at the same time helping those students with those type of careers. And it's okay to say, you know what, this career is not for me. In what we found out that after the second or third year of going to a university or college, many of the students do drop. And based on that issue is that they did not like the career they started out with. So we want to make sure that we have that exploration thereof.
Mr. Chairman, Jerry?
Yes.
I just had a question from somebody texting me. How would you describe your overlap with GYDC?
GYDC obviously brings a lot of the careers. We want to have a place with GYDC for many of the companies that they bring. If there's no facility for them, we want to provide that facility on the zones itself. So we're working not only with GYDC, obviously, but with Arizona Western College, with their entrepreneur programs, and obviously with our startups. So we want to kind of, it's a cohesive unit. Even with YCETA, we're working with them as well, making sure that there is a place for those folks. It's not, we're not competing, we're not going after the companies.
Yeah, do you think there's any overlap or dual?
No, not at this point.
Okay.
There isn't. On the contrary, Greg Levant, the president there at GYDC, he's in our board as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. So is YCETA.
An additional question. We just had someone withdraw or resign from our industrial board agency for development. Do you have any engagement with that board? What was the name of that board called?
the IDA. Oh,
Industrial Development.
I have. I actually was part of the Somerton IDA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would that be helpful to engage in something like
Oh,
that?
absolutely. Always helpful, more communications amongst our stakeholders.
From what I understood, they haven't had a meeting since 5 or 6 years.
It's been a while, yes, sir.
All right.
I can engage with Jerry.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Just like to make sure we're collaborating with everybody that we.
Oh,
have.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's key. That's key for this to be successful for the economic development growth of the region itself. Obviously, I mentioned the private industries, the education institutions, the government agencies, and entrepreneurs. Government agencies meaning obviously the county. We're working closely with the city of Yuma and most of the municipalities as well. So we're kind of collaborating, making sure this is successful for the region. So one thing that we want to keep up, making sure that we are up to date on the key sectors and obviously some of the information that is required for us to provide is based on the county profile. And this is where we got most of our information. 9.7, it was a 2023. I think now it's at 10.3 billion as far as the GRP. So that has changed just as of December as well. So this is basically who we are currently, right? So this is what demographics and other companies look at. In order for them to, retails, they'll come and do the due diligence based on this information itself, including this. So one area that we're looking at, obviously, for the Innovation Hub itself is we're just the Innovation Hub. Then I'll mention more other items that are not on here, and I'll explain why. By just year one on the economic development and community impact, basically what we have across the street is that we're looking at about creating 310 jobs just for the construction there of the Innovation Hub. The GRP based on that, it's about 33.8 million. The labor income is at 18.7. Taxes generated just by the construction thereof, 6.2, and the household spending about 15.7, just in the construction alone itself. The operational impact of the Innovation Hub, and that doesn't include grants in other areas. It's about 3 million. GDP is at 48.2. Labor income in the next 15 years, about 29.2 million. Cumulative jobs over the next 15 years, about 549, and a tax revenue at 12.3 million. So this is just some of the examples of what the operational impact of this 60,000 square foot facility would create. Obviously, the zone itself of all the facilities, retail, hotels, apartment complexes in itself is about 3,600 employees. Cumulative is 5.4 billion. Labor income about 2.5. Taxes generated 912 million, and household spending about 2.1 billion in itself.
Jerry?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. So have you had conveyances or promises of conveyance from the railroad to complete the section?
I can't mention that. That's the city of Yuma, but I think they're moving on a positive note.
Okay,
I can't speak for the city of Yuma.
okay.
Yes, it's positive
It's positive?
though.
Are you positive?
No,
Okay.
they're the ones telling me that it's positive.
Okay.
So before there's another video. Before I mention this, this is just the operational side and the impact of the zone itself. This does not include some of the grants that we're working on. We're working on a $20 million project. It's a grant, and this is creating energy using the border wall. It's kind of a complex and neat project itself. The other one is obviously the spaceport, and that's $160 million over the next 10 years. That's just some of the areas. And with the Yuma spaceport itself, even though it's $160 million over the next 10 years, the amount of commercialization that'll bring jobs and other type of industries is more than $160 million grant. And it's more than what we're looking at here. Because we have many agencies across the state, including YPG, YCEDA, U of A, ASU, and NAU working on the spaceport itself, bringing it together. We're closer to getting that completed by next week and turn it in the following week. So it looks very positive what we're trying to accomplish. The main objective is to do different type of alloys, combustible materials, artificial intelligence, and different nozzles, 3D printing of different nozzles. So that's our main four areas of focus to create jobs and other type of revenue obviously for the region
Do you have
itself.
any additional partners in that, Jerry? In Arizona?
We have ACA. There is several ones that GYDC is working on with us to bring those partners in as well. We are looking at, there's several aerospace companies as well.
Are you working with the Mesa Defense Complex?
I think that Amber and Mike Morgan is working on that, Colonel Mike Morgan as well. Yeah. So I don't know if you have any further questions regarding this. So I have a video, but I'm going to put a disclaimer. I don't know if you can put the video up. A disclaimer that what the rocket you'll see here that expects to be launched in the area is not the same rocket that's going to be out there. Just to put a disclaimer out there.
Arizona is where the land doesn't just feed the nation, but cultivates the future. In the lettuce capital, each green leaf is a testament to life thriving in the desert, and every sunrise marks a new chapter in a story of limitless possibilities. Here, borders fade over horizons that keep expanding, and lines on the map blur, creating a hub where global connections and innovation intertwine like roots seeking new ground. But the greater Yuma region isn't just a geographic point. It's a vibrant community within a mega region of 1.7 million people spanning across Yuma County, Imperial County, Baja California, Sonora, and 2 tribal nations, all converging in the heart of the desert. Here, time moves in rhythms, both ancient and modern, weaving a tapestry of past, present, and future that you feel with every step. For those seeking more, Greater Yuma is a place of endless opportunity, inviting those who dare to dream big and live beyond the ordinary to establish a vibrant community where both local and outside talent want to work, learn, play, live, and stay. At the heart of this transformation is the Elevate Southwest Innovation Hub, where ideas aren't just born, born, they're forged with precision and passion. This is where the brightest minds come together to sculpt the future. Each innovation igniting a new path forward. Elevate Southwest is more than a movement. It's building bridges between great jobs and a highly skilled workforce, connecting people and regions. As these ideas take flight, Elevate Southwest is also building a bridge to the stars. With a new spaceport connecting this land to international airspace, we're shattering the boundaries of what's possible. If something can thrive in Greater Yuma, it won't just survive, it will conquer. This is the moment. This is the place. Elevate Southwest isn't just changing the game, it's rewriting the rules, crafting a new narrative in history. Join us in the Greater Yuma region, where the desert becomes an oasis of opportunity and the future isn't just anticipated, it's created.
Like I said, it was just a disclaimer, that's not the same size rocket. But just a caveat, the building itself, at least the rendering, was done by Chris Thompson Architects and an intern working with Chris that put those 3D models together. So, great. If you have any further questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Can you share that video with us?
Yeah, actually, you guys have it already.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, presentation of El Condado Informado by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
Bienvenidos al Condado Informado. El día de hoy estoy con Irma, aquí en una de nuestras bibliotecas en el Condado de Yuma. Irma, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, gracias. ¿Y tú?
Pues muy bien, estamos muy emocionados en presentar una de las bibliotecas que estamos aquí en Yuma, porque tú dinos un poquito de lo que haces, porque es algo tan importante para nuestra comunidad. ¿Qué es lo que haces tú aquí en estas bibliotecas?
Bueno, pues primero que nada, mi trabajo es coordinar los programas en español. Entonces lo que intento, mi objetivo es informar a las personas de todos los programas que tenemos para ellos, los recursos, ya sea en línea o físicos, incluso eventos o programas que tenemos para invitarlos a venir a las bibliotecas del condado.
Y qué bueno saber, porque las bibliotecas son servicios públicos que todo el mundo puede venir, ¿verdad? Entonces, sí. Los programas que incluyen, un poquito de información para la comunidad de qué son esos programas que ahorita están incluyendo.
Pues va a variar dependiendo del mes o de la biblioteca, pero intentamos tener clases de inglés o algo referente a aprender el idioma inglés. Tenemos clases de ciudadanía, tenemos clases de arte y tenemos eventos especiales dependiendo de los días importantes para la cultura latina, como es el Día de Muertos. Se hace altares de muertos en la mayoría de nuestras bibliotecas, se hacen eventos, se invita a la comunidad ahora sí que los invitamos a formar parte de.
Sí, y me imagino que si vas llegando como al condado de Yuma, que incluye varias ciudades adentro del condado, sí, es una buena manera de conocer a personas, sí, involucrarte en la comunidad. Yo he visto algunos de los programas que han hecho y la mera verdad que están preciosos. Me parece que San Luis, Arizona, también miré y hacen como un evento de arte hispano, sí, ¿verdad? Entonces sí, es parte de eso también, de los programas para la comunidad hispana.
Sí, se hace una exposición de arte tanto en San Luis como en Foothills, donde se invita a la comunidad hispana a que envíe sus obras de arte, pueden ser fotografías, pinturas, y se exponen ahí adentro. Entonces, sí, son actividades que esperamos les gusten. Todos nuestros programas son gratis, y pues la verdad es que está abierta la biblioteca para todas las personas, no importa el estatus socioeconómico, ni nada, todas las personas son bienvenidas. Para sacar los libros físicos, llevarlos a casa, necesitaríamos una tarjeta o una credencial de la biblioteca. Para eso solo se requiere dos cosas, o bueno, una, que es una identificación oficial que tenga nombre y dirección actual del condado de Yuma. Las credenciales no tienen ningún costo para los residentes del condado. condado.
Pues muy bien. Ahora, ¿los horarios son diferentes para todas las bibliotecas o son iguales?
No, van a variar. Tenemos 8 bibliotecas dentro del condado, desde San Luis hasta Dayland. La única que abre los días sábados es la biblioteca principal, que es en la que estamos ahorita.
Ok, muy bien. Pues para más información, por si tiene pregunta la gente, incluso me parece saber que por internet hay varios recursos también, nomás que no sé si son en español, pero me parece que son en inglés, ¿verdad?
Tenemos de todo. También
todo,
tenemos en
también.
español. También, aparte, como dices, tenemos recursos en línea, no tienen que venir aquí. Tenemos, por ejemplo, Hoopla y Libby, que son libros en línea. Tenemos The Shelf, ese es especialmente para las personas que hablan español, y son videos, novelas, películas en español. Y nomás lo único que requieres para eso sí es tu credencial, y ya.
Y es gratis.
Es gratis.
Y es en español.
Y es ahí en español.
Ahí en español. Pues, o sea, no hay excusa alguna para aburrirse, no hay excusa alguna para no aprender, porque aquí todos los servicios están 24 horas al día y disponibles gratis. Irma, muchas gracias. ¿Se me olvida alguna cosa, algo que le quieras compartir al público que nos mira?
No, pues nomás esperamos verlos por aquí, denos una oportunidad, conozcan lo que hacemos y les prometo que no se van a arrepentir.
Nos vemos.
Bye.
All right. And just as for information, for those of you that don't see our channel, UMACH 77, we do these segments in English and Spanish every other meeting. So, moving on to consent calendar. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve. You want to poll?
I want to pull number 7.
Okay.
That's me too.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll also like to recuse myself of item number 4 as the state chairman of the Water Infrastructure and Finance Authority. And so I'd make a motion that we would adopt and approve 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
I'll second.
Go ahead and make,
I'll second that.
I'll make a motion to approve number 4.
I'll second that.
So we'll go ahead and go with the first one. All those, there's a motion and a second to approve items 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There's a motion to approve item number 4 and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7. And the school superintendent is here to accept the Burton Family Foundation grant in the amount of $25,000 for the Yuma STEM Lending Library.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just want to thank the Burton Family Foundation and Eliane Osborne that works out of our office for providing these grants for our community and for our schools. We have a STEM library that's housed at Arizona Western College that's financed primarily by these grants that she produces out of our office. The local schools can check out kits, use those kits in their classes, and take them back. And so they're very interesting. So we're trying to create as many kits as we can for our STEM lending library. And we've had pretty good success so far, but this is provided by Eliane Osborne out of our office, and that she's created this STEM library for the community, and it's housed at Arizona Western College. I'd just like to thank the STEM library for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve item 7.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve item number 7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to Discussion and action items. The board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. Item number 1, discussion and possible action or directing regarding the future of the county expenditure limits as imposed by Article 9, Section 20 of the Arizona Constitution. Humberto?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good morning, all. I would like to share this presentation with you this morning regarding expenditure limits in Yuma County. A little background. Oh, there you go. So a little background. Back in August 21, 2023, the board discussed the challenges with the expenditure limits under Article 9, Section 20. Compliance is monitored via the annual expenditure limitation report and submitted to the Auditor General. And the pressure we're under, the operational cost pressures, are the increase in the expenses, and an additional challenge was the 2020 census, which complicated compliance for some of the counties, Yuma County included. So defining the expenditure limitations, what are the limits? Mandated by the Arizona Constitution, Article 9, Section 20, expenditure limits are designed to control local spending and align with inflation and population growth. The purpose of the limits is to ensure the fiscal responsibility by restricting the use of local revenues to essential services and voter-approved exceptions like CIP projects. The impact it has on local governance, it's that it limits influence in budgeting, resource allocation, and operational planning for the counties. What are the sources of the local revenues and what are some of the exclusions or the exemptions? Where the main source of local revenues are property taxes. We also have shared revenue and taxes. Debt. Debt is an exclusion. Revenues do not include funds raised through debt mechanisms. Investment income is also an exclusion, and specific funding exceptions such as HERF, state and federal grants, and CIP projects approved by voters. CIP is the abbreviation for capital improvement projects. Additional background on the expenditure limits, or a small summary. They were established back in the 1980s. The funding exceptions we talked about in the last slide are federal and state grants, HERF funding, and some CIP projects approved by voters. And the state is the one who has the oversight. We get a memo from the Arizona Economic Estimates Commission every year around March, and this memo, this commission, determines what the limit for each county is. So how do they do that? How do they go in and say, hey, counties, this is your limit for this year? They use the famous formula, which is based on the 1979-1980 base limit, which for Yuma County was 9.58 million. Let's keep that number in mind. We're going to go back to this number in the following slides. So they use 9.58 million and multiply it by the population factor of the current year and by the inflation factor. That is how they get this number right here, 116.07 million. Why am I using this example? Well, because this number, 116 million, was the limit that the Economic Estimates Commission established for Yuma County. And here's how they applied the formula. So they're using the 9.58 million back from the 1980s, multiplying it by the population inflation factor, and we get 116. That is for this current fiscal year 24-25. Compliance reporting. In summary, the county submit the annual expenditure limitation report each year to the Auditor General. What does this report include? It includes all the expenditures adjusted for allowed subtractions and exclusions. So everything that the county is spending in that fiscal year, minus the exclusions. What were the exclusions that we mentioned in the last slides? Well, state and federal grants, HERF funding, CIPs. Transparency is very important. Non-compliance may result in hearings, penalties, and these penalties include tax adjustments to the levy limits of the next fiscal year. So what this means is the amount we exceed in our expenditure limit, we need to reduce that our tax levy for the next fiscal year by that amount. So that is not good. What are the concerns, risks, and challenges that the county is facing currently? Well, the first concern or the main challenge are the operational cost increases. Everything is getting more expensive. And besides everything is getting more expensive, we are growing. So the county is growing, and the ability to remain within its limits, it's getting more challenging. And we'll see this in a chart in the next slides. Another challenge that did not benefit the county is the 2020 census, which resulted in reduced population base for some counties, Yuma County included. So instead of our population increasing according to the EEC, we actually decreased. So if you play that into the formula, you factor that into the formula, we get a lower expenditure limit. It reduces the state shared revenues and the county's primary tax levy for the next fiscal year to offset the overages. Another slide on concerns and risks. Well, service cuts requires cutting services and delaying critical projects to stay within limits. It damages public trust, triggers the Arizona Auditor General audits, and increases state oversight. So we may get even more audits and more oversight from the state if we exceed our limit. And it limits our flexibility in future budgets, impacting our long-term planning and the county's priorities. This chart is showing the current status, where we were right here and where we are now. This chart is in millions of dollars. So this column right here is, we started at $60–70 million in 2010. And the chart goes all the way up to $120 million. So we can see we were doing all right for the last 10 years. The gap here is pretty decent, but it starts closing here. It's not a coincidence. It's after the pandemic. Everything started increasing, expenditures, life got more expensive in general, and also that census I was talking about on the last slide lowered our expenditure limit. So on the last fiscal year we reported, our eligible expenditures, which is this orange line right here, was 96.6, and our limit was $100 million. So we were short $4 million of exceeding our expenditure limit. For the last fiscal year 24, our limit was 110. You may notice we don't have a number here right now. We are currently working on the expenditure limitation report, and we are looking for all those exclusions that are going to keep us under the limit. Even though the projection, you'll look at a slide with projections in a couple of minutes, is showing that we are going to go over close to $1 million. But we are currently working on finding all the exclusions that are going to keep us under for the last fiscal year. We're talking about FY24. So the challenge begins in FY24. In the current report, we're working. So what happens if we don't take action? We don't do anything. What's going to happen? We may go over our limit as soon as 2025. This is the projection for the report we are currently working on. And this is where I mentioned we are looking for those exclusions that are going to keep us under the limit. State and federal grants, CIPs. But in 2025, and remember, this is only a projection.
What about ARPA?
It's an exclusion, federal grants, so we can factor ARPA in there as an exclusion, and we'll be fine. Just a little side note here, the projection is using 1.95 of population increase per year, same number for inflation, and conservative 6.7 projected expenditure increase. So this is what we're looking at here. And in 2025, the projection says we're going to exceed our limit by $2.6 million. We can still work on not exceeding the limit because we are in mid-fiscal year. This is the current fiscal year. We can work with departments countywide in strictly adhering to our budget and looking for those exclusions that are going to help us stay under the limit. But that is not sustainable over the years. We can pull it off in 2025, but as we go into the future, expenditures increase, and our limit with that 1980 base limit is not increasing as fast as our expenditures, as our growth.
Mr. Chairman, Beto?
Yes,
So
sir.
you're suggesting a legislative remedy?
I'll get into that into the next slides. And yes, the answer is yes. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what other counties did. So why am I talking about these three counties? We have similarities, specifically on our base limits. The three counties started with a limit, an expenditure limit, very close to $10 million. So this is going to be easy for us to do the math. Coconino County increased its base expenditure limit by 7.7. Why do I say it's easy to do the math? Well, if their base limit was 7.7, it means they increased their limit close to 70%, right? Proposition 482 passed with 73% voters' approval in the last general election on November 2024. Their population is not very similar to us. They have 150,000. Yavapai County, its population is close to 250,000. They increased their base expenditure limit by 7.9 million, or 80%, around 80%, with Proposition 479. It passed with 62.8% voters' approval in the same general election last November 2024. Greenlee County, which also had a base limit close to 10 million, increased it by 4 million, or around 40%, with Proposition 400, and passed with 59%. This was done in 2022. Lessons learned, all three counties highlighted the importance of transparent communication to the voters. And a side note here on Coconino County. They had the same meeting we are having with their Board of Supervisors and approved the resolution to go out to the voters on February 20th. So we are doing it a little bit ahead of time. The recommendation, I reached out to the CFOs of the counties, is that time is key. Time in reaching the voters with transparency and information.
Chairman, are there any counties that didn't get approved that submitted?
Yes, they are. I do not have them on the slide, but I can get you that information.
I think it's La Paz.
Was it? Yeah. I was just curious if there was any and what
Santa
problems they
Cruz and
ran
La Paz?
into.
I don't know about La Paz, I know Santa Cruz. That was some years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the slide where I am making my recommendation, but the main thing is seeking guidance from the board. This is a number that can change. It is just what my recommendation is and what this exercise on the following slide is going to show you. So I am proposing a ballot measure for a special election in November 2025 to adjust the expenditure-based limit by 3.83 million, or 40%. Partner with the City of Yuma and the County Supervisors Association for educational and strategic support. So the City of Yuma is currently exploring this option too, and even though their methodology, their formula, and their needs are different, for educational purposes, it would be beneficial for both organizations, both entities, to go out to the voters and inform what this is and what this is not. I'm going to go back to the formula, and it's just a quick summary. So that number, the base in 1980, 9.58, we already know that our new expenditure limitation is $116 million. What happens if our increase gets approved by 40% or $3.83 million. So we use this base right here, we add the $3.83 million, and we turn this number into $13.41 million. And we're talking about fiscal year 26. We multiply the 13.41 times the population factor times the inflation factor, and our new limit is $173 million. That $3.83 million or 40% increase just increased our limit by $57.7 million with this exercise. So why 3.83? Why 40%, Humberto? Do you like that number? Is it a random number? Why am I using 40%? I think when comparing with other counties, the 40% is a conservative approach. It's less than 50%. Other counties increased by 7 million, close to 8 million, 80% of their base limit. So I ran this exercise with a 40% increase, and it provides stable ground until at least 2039 or the next 14 years. I can run numbers with a more aggressive approach if the board decides they want to approach that more aggressively, or we can even lower it to a 35, a 30%, depending on what we discuss here or what guidance you provide.
Mr. Chair, Humberto, how often do we have to pass this? Just once or over and over and
It'll
over
be
again?
just once, a permanent increase
Permanent increase.
to the base. Yeah, so we're basically going back in time and saying, hey, the 1980s number is no longer good for us. We want to have an increase by whatever we decide as a county and what's best for the county.
Mr. Chairman, Beto,
Yes.
the prescription is it revised statutes or is it just the original baseline for the counties to operate off of? I mean, was it passed by the legislature? Do we need to amend it at the legislature, or do we need to keep going back to the voters?
No, we need to go to the voters, but just one time. And it's every county is operating under the same, here in Arizona, under the same expenditure base limit, except the ones that have increased it.
Mr. Chairman, if I just add something, there is a legislative option, but it needs a 2/3 majority. And what that does is adjust your population and thereby changes the formula. Unlikely to get 2/3 support in the legislature, according to CSA.
Okay, so with the corrective baseline of our population, how does that change it without going back to the voters?
Well, it would change
If we actually had the
this
real
factor.
count.
Excuse me?
If we actually had the real count.
If we actually had the real count, it would still
Fall short? How short?
fall short. How short? Well, it depends on how what's the new population number for Yuma County. And instead of changing the base, so the base would stay the same right here, we would just change the population, and the factor does not have a big significant impact of as it would if we change the base.
Whatever happened to so much in the San Luis?
It passed. Every entity in Arizona goes through this every 4 years.
Yeah.
If it's not a permanent,
Yeah.
they gotta go to the voters. So,
But on your census,
it went down.
it did.
But this past election, Somerton took it to the voters and it passed.
Okay.
But they got to do that every 4 years.
Okay.
But is this happening because our census came back so low? Is that part of the problem?
It's part of the problem. It's not the main reason this is happening. It's a lot of factors, increase in expenditures, growth, inflation.
It's a
Lots
combination.
changed over 45 years.
What's that?
Lots changed over 45 years.
Yes, a lot has changed over 45 years.
It's a combination, but I think it's mainly that formula that goes back to 79, 80.
Yeah, okay.
That's just the
Yes,
what it is, basically.
okay.
Okay, what would this mean for the voters? What it is, it's an adjustment to allow the county to use its existing revenues more effectively to meet growing operational needs. What it is not, it's not a new tax or an increase on the current rates. It does not authorize unrestrained spending. So raising the base limit ensures fiscal responsibility while meeting the community's needs. What are the next steps? Well, next steps are ask direction from the board, whether you want to move forward with this recommendation. Would you like to have another exercise that shows another different set of numbers? And another important step we need to address immediately is work with the department so they adhere strictly to their budgets and prioritize savings so we don't exceed our limits for
This year, for 2025.
for fiscal year 25.
I'd like to see a combination of all of them, right?
Yeah,
Make sure that we are not exceeding our limits, that we're living within our budget, prioritizing savings, and then we can go through the other exercise as well.
Yes. So if we strictly adhere to our budgets, well, first, work on the report for FY24 and find all those exclusions that are going to keep us under the limit. And second, work in this current fiscal year to stay within budget and don't exceed our expenditure limit.
Do we need a special election, or we wait till the 2020?
It'll be
We need a special election. If we wait for the next election, we'll probably be fine next fiscal year, this current fiscal year, but it's not going to be sustainable to keep fighting this right here.
I like the idea of working with the city of Yuma. I mean, like I said, every entity goes through this, and I think if they do it and the county does it, it's a dual, more being transparent and letting the people know it's not a new tax. It's not that we're going to spend more. It's just
allowing us to
Allowing
spend
the-
the
what
money
we
that's
come
already
in,
meant.
that comes in.
But we need to start with our community outreach now
Yeah, we do.
to get the message out there so people do understand it.
Yes, I have a lot of valuable resources that CFO from Coconino County shared with me. Their pamphlets, their communication brochures, and also timelines when they started. So as I mentioned a couple of slides ago, they approved their resolution on February 20th, and then they started working on getting the information out to the voters. So as a hold for the next board meeting, I submitted the draft for the resolution so we could buy more time if the board decided to move forward with this. We can be looking at our resolution as soon as the next board meeting. So we will be in a very similar timeframe as Coconino County was.
So I used the combinations, and let's get started, I would say.
I
Let's
agree.
live within our means, prioritize our budget that we already have, and see if we can find the exclusions, and then move forward with the voter approved changes.
Well, you'll be seeing that resolution on the next agenda tonight. And thank you very much for your time. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me, email me.
Thank you, Humberto. And just one last comment. I know I went through this with the city of Somerton for about 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And one of the things was the department that was going to be cut in the city of Somerton, that it was always the first. It was public work. I mean, not public works, Parks and Recs department. So it was, the Somerton wouldn't be able to sustain it. And so that's another thing. We just started Parks and Recs here. So we need to, if we want to continue, we need those voters to, realize that it's not more spending, it's just allowing us to spend the money that we get in.
Exactly.
Thank you, Humberto.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again. Hi there.
Good morning, Chairman Porteous, members of the board. Tiffany Anderson, Facilities Management Director. This morning, I am going to be providing information for a discussion on the potential future ownership and or occupancy of 102 South Main Street, which is our current recorder's office, as well as this facility here at 198. I'll start off with recapping the facility condition assessment preliminary results, just to give you some context, and then go into a little more detail on each of those facilities. So starting with our recap, the facility condition assessment, the on-site assessment was over 2 weeks in October of 2024. 38 buildings were assessed with a total of 570,000 square feet. And our facilities are between 1 and 119 years old. Actually, that 119 number is a little bit shocking. So their methodology that they utilized is in asset planning and performance software, where they put the information that they gathered on the ground to provide some recommendations. The building life cycles were identified as best practices published by the Building Owners and Managers Association. That acronym is BOMA. We'll reference that a little bit later. The estimated costs are determined by their proprietary cost model and were adjusted based on a location-specific basis. So they adjusted those potential costs based on UMA's economic situation. They also prioritize needs based on urgency. So you'll see here in the high category, those include systems like our electrical, fire protection, HVAC, and roofing. Those that are considered medium urgency include our exterior, interior enclosure, windows and doors, and plumbing systems. And then low, you can consider those cosmetic items. So those are the finishes, as well as our pedestrian and vehicular pavements. This chart shows you the cost summary. I am going to have you focus on just two numbers highlighted here on this slide. So the red box identifies the total needs in expired building systems that were assessed in current year. This was part of the assessment. That number shows there's $10.6 million in needs on currently expired systems according to BOMA's best practices. So they have life cycles identified for each of these systems. This doesn't mean that we have actively failing systems in all of these buildings, just the risk of failure is higher once they've exceeded that recommended life cycle. Moving your attention over to that kind of orange box under the total needs of 2029. What that shows you is that if the decision was to make 0 improvements to our buildings right now, so we don't tackle any of those needs in the 10.6 column, $10.6 million, the current needs plus those identified over the next 5 years would increase the cost to the county to $18.78 million. Diving into the details of 102 South Main Street, so that's our recorder's building. Building information here, it was built in approximately 1920, has close to 15,000 square feet between office and storage space. The county purchased this facility in November of 2021 as a temporary office or workspace for the county recorder and election services during demolition and construction of the new administration center across the street. It is located within the Main Street Historic District, and I will touch on what that means in a couple of slides, since both of these facilities do reside within a registered historic district. Current county investment. The purchase price of this facility was $903,000. Tenant improvements totaled a little over $450,000, with some additional projects for the HVAC system totaling close to $5,000. The annual operation and maintenance of the facility is $5,700. What that includes are our service agreements for things like fire inspections, pest control, annual alarm monitoring services, and general repairs such as light bulbs, filters, plumbing issues, those types of general repairs. showing a total current investment of in this facility of $1.3 million. The needs that were assessed as part of the condition assessment are included in this chart here. You'll see that it's estimated at $821,000, with the big ticket items in the $200,000 range of electrical branch wiring, as well as fire protection, sprinklers, and standpipes. There's also a high need for replaced roof covering, as well as some other plumbing and electrical issues identified. Also, this number does not include the need for a new freight elevator if that building continues to be occupied. I would recommend adding an additional $200,000 to this number for a full replacement of the freight elevator in that facility to maintain operation and safety. Moving on to 198 South Main Street, the building we're in right now. Building information, it was built in 1924. It has over 26,000 square feet, and the county purchased it in December of 1988. As I mentioned, it's within both the Main Street and Brindley Avenue historic districts. The county investment, we purchased this beautiful building for $10. $10. And the projects that we've invested in since 2011 is a little over $500,000. And the reason we have 2011 here is those are the reliable records that I could locate on our network drive. I'm sorry to say that the records, 30 to 40 years back aren't as reliable. So I wanted to ensure I was giving you something relevant and accurate. This does include the cost of the first floor renovation for human resources in the Office of Management and Budget. The annual O&M for this building is a bit higher. It's about a little over $15,000 a year, and that is primarily because we have central plant HVAC here, which requires a monthly service to keep up on the chemicals for optimal operation of that HVAC system. So the total investment as of 2011 for Yuma County is $680,000.
Need to find out how we got it for $10.
I can show you all the paperwork that I dug through.
Who did we buy it from?
We purchased it from the city of Yuma.
Don't say that.
198 South Main Street, current needs identified on this chart here. Again, these are the expired systems, so not failed system, but expired according to best practices. Current need identified, $1.5 million. So the biggest items here to highlight are about $400,000 each to replace that electrical branch wiring and our fire protection standpipe, sprinklers and standpipe. Other large items here, replacing sanitary waste and roof coverings. Just a note for consideration on older buildings, you don't ever know quite what you're going to find when you start opening the walls and floors and ceilings. And so if we were to move forward with these projects, I would request a pretty healthy contingency to ensure that we could complete a project once it gets started, regardless of what else is identified in the process. Okay, National Historic Register guidelines. As I mentioned, both properties are within a registered historic district. Building exteriors must comply with the National Park Service's standards and guidelines for preservation, rehabilitation, restoration, and reconstruction projects. For us, we would fall under that rehabilitation category, which is defined as a historic building materials and character-defining features are protected. The 2 dot points underneath are pulled directly from the National Park Service guidelines. Latitude is given to replace extensively deteriorated, damaged, or missing features using the same material or compatible substitute material. I underline that because, as we'll discuss in a minute, there are very specific recommendations for different types of materials within the guidelines, but they do allow for substitute materials as long as it has a historic, it looks historic, so that it matches the aesthetic, not necessarily the exact material that was originally used. It does allow these buildings to be altered if necessary for continuing or new use of the facilities. And then here's what I alluded to. Guidelines for handling the different materials are prescriptive, but not overly restrictive. What I mean by that is there is a chart under each material, say it's concrete or plaster. And this chart shows you what is recommended by the National Park Service, what is not recommended, and then alternates. So if you cannot afford or locate the historic material, they suggest an alternate to achieve that same historical facade of the facilities. So for this facility here, we have an additional document called a Deed of Conservation Easement. This was an agreement between Yuma County and the City of Yuma when the property was first purchased back in 1988. Essentially, it requires written permission from the City of Yuma for, quote, construction, alteration, remodeling on the premises. And it also requires preservation of the external building facades and structural soundness of the interior. We already have to do this as part of the permitting process with the City of Yuma. So the changes to any of our buildings within the city limits have to go through the Design and Historic Review Commission for their feedback and sign off. This is essentially saying the same thing. It's just binding us to the National Park Service's guidelines for the preservation of historic buildings. And for point of clarification, because I think there's been confusion along the line, this building is not an individually registered historic place. In some of the paperwork for the district, it was alluded to that this building was a standalone historic building. I confirmed with the state's historic office, and they confirmed that this building was never individually listed, only as a contributing structure to the overall historic district. Okay, to summarize current and future costs, I'm going to walk you through this chart here. Starting with 102 South Main Street. The current needs there identified of $1.2 million includes the $800,000 from the condition assessment, plus $200,000 for the freight elevator, and some contingency. I listed our current O&M and plugged in a very rough potential tenant improvement amount if the public fiduciary were to occupy that space. It is currently configured for the recorder and recorder and elections needs. However, public fiduciary has a very different business need that would require at least some tenant improvements to that facility. So that subtotal there is saying if we were to keep that building and bring it up to standard, replace those aged building systems, and make it work for the public fiduciary's business needs, I would estimate that it would cost $1.4 million. Adding to that, what we've invested to date of $1.3 million, the total near-term investment would be $2.8 million. Moving on to 198, similar structure there. So the $1.8 million is the current needs assessment of $1.5 million plus contingency. We have the O&M. Whatever potential tenant improvement, that is unknown. I know that there's some tentative plans for what this building, who will occupy or could occupy this facility once it's vacant. But there wasn't anything firm enough for me to feel confident in estimating what could cost to reconfigure space. So that would be almost $1.9 million added to what was invested since 2011, bringing us to a total near-term investment for 198 South Main Street of $2.5 million. Just for awareness, by choosing to make further investments in these two facilities, we would be deferring needs of the other buildings. So taking about $10.6 million in identified expired building systems. If we're spending $3.3 million in the near term to keep these buildings operational and occupied, we would be deferring projects at some of the other occupied facilities. For every $1 of deferred maintenance, there is a $4 increase in future capital investment. And that's in both direct costs as well as indirect costs on those projects that are deferred. Potential options. For the recorder's office, we can keep it. Public fiduciary would occupy it, bring those building systems up to date, complete the tenant improvements. Or sell. We would need an appraisal. We could expect approximately $900,000. I would hope that we could get out what we put in the original investment of what we purchased it for. Public fiduciary could be included back into the ITS and facilities building project on Avenue B. Former construction projects director estimated that cost to be $2.4 million. The cost of adding public fiduciary back into the project on Avenue B could be $2.4 million.
And how much was it to renovate it?
Both buildings or just 102?
Just 102.
It would be $1.8 million between current building needs and tenant improvements.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 1.4.
Thank you.
I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you.
I
Sorry
know,
about that.
That's okay.
So for this building here, options, keep it. Public defender could occupy the third floor, which I think was the most recent conversation. Again, update those outdated building systems. If there's some tenant improvements necessary, take care of those before they move in, or sell. We would need an appraisal for the building, and continue renting space for public defender until the future plans are solidified for that facility closer to the Justice Center for court support.
Camarina old parking lot, yeah.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, I've concluded the information.
The the old Hofstadter building, can that work as an interim for public fiduciary until we get the facility built for IT and the other departments down on Avenue B?
Chairman Porches, Supervisor Simmons, I think the short answer is yes. I would like to speak with our public fiduciary on what their preference of staying in their existing facility for a little bit longer versus making multiple moves.
No, I'm just saying if we need to, because I'm not sure what kind of shape the current fiduciary is in.
Tiffany, this all sounds vaguely familiar, like we've discussed it and already had a plan. I realized there was additional discussion coming out of the long term, but we had already made a motion and had a discussion on retention of these buildings going forward. I know some of those costs are a little bit high. Is there no reversion clause for 198 Main going back to the city?
Chairman Porches, Supervisor Lyons, from the information that I read, there was not a reversion clause.
Okay.
So
I was led to believe that there was.
That's interesting. In my review of the materials and discussion with the county attorney's office, Yuma County is the sole and rightful owner of this facility.
Okay.
It's not currently shared ownership. So as far as mine and the county attorney's office understanding is that Yuma County is the owner of this facility.
Okay. We don't need to grant them first right of refusal for the $10?
I will defer that question to the county attorney's office.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I can add though, in my review of those same documents, we would be required to burden any future owner with that conservation easement. So there would be that requirement that they maintain the facade to those historic building preservation standards.
So in 1988, I had the opportunity to work on this building post-transfer, and most of the aesthetic requirements, architectural elements, were complied with at that time. And so there wouldn't be any additional needs there. It's just maintenance. And so it's not like we need to replace a whole lot there. So it made it seem like it was elevated as price-wise or conflated maybe because of the additional color around the requirements for maintaining it. But those aren't necessarily required because they already exist. And the product still exists to replace if you needed to do anything like that.
Chairman Porches, Supervisor Lyons, am I understanding your question as
More of a comment,
The cost-
really. It just seemed like it was a little bit elevated and higher than we had previously discussed. And I thought we had had a discussion around IT facilities as being a standalone for their concern regarding security and not wanting to be with anybody else. And that's what we heard directly from IT. They didn't want to be housed with any other agency or group within the county because they wanted to maintain their security.
Security. Aren't they going to be housed with facilities?
That is correct.
Yes.
But that's what they said to us.
Yeah, they may be desirous of that, but no, that's,
Well,
They're-
okay,
they're-
well, that was the concern that they'd expressed.
yeah, there'll be proxy card security and
Okay.
access restrictions for sure. But yeah, they'll be right now in the board's direction in the same facilities. And you're right, the board has given previous direction about
It just seems like we keep rehashing the same things over and over again.
Right, and of course, from the long-term planning roundtable, this whole discussion stems out of the condition assessment that was completed, so we thought it would be fortuitous for the board to hear the update and just confirm your previous decision or come forward with a different decision.
Well, I mean, we're not gonna get what we have already put in those buildings. So to me, selling them, it's out of the question. I mean, we'll keep them, I think, and maintain them, and I mean, we're not gonna do that in 1 year, that $1.8 million. And even if we had to, we would have to, we'll find a way. But I think year after year, every year we can do some things to those buildings and keep them. But I think it's just, we got a new building across. This building is gonna be occupied. So they're paying rent. That same amount of money can be going into it every year to this building for maintenance or upkeeping.
If we're gonna,
So,
Mr. Chairman, if we're gonna have a discussion, I agree with you 100%. Maybe have this discussion in 4 years.
Yeah.
Once we've completely moved into the new building and assessing our needs, looking back, seeing what we have available, how everybody is settled, without having to revisit this on a yearly basis. Just seems like there's a push to get us to change our decision that we had already made about retention of these buildings and maintaining them.
I'm not changing my mind.
Yeah, certainly no intention to push, just to
Okay.
revisit based on the new information.
no, I mean, it's great information. At least we do have at least part of or to see the numbers. So we can start addressing that, on our budget. So if we gotta cut this, to keep these buildings, then I think those decisions are gonna have to be made. So, great information, Tiffany, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the work that went into your presentation.
Moving on to planning and zoning agenda. The full legal descriptions of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. Expediting rezoning and public hearings, these items will be open as a group for public hearing and acted upon by one motion to adopt the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that is removed by a board member for separate consideration. That item will be discussed and acted upon separately following action on expedited items. I'll go ahead and open both items. Item number 1, special use permit case number 24-12, and item number 2, special use permit case number 2413. Do we need does anybody want to
Expedited?
our presentation?
Not really.
No?
No.
All right.
Can we have it expedited?
Yeah, well, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Do we make a motion on separate or both? Separate, okay.
Separate?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve special use permit case number 20-12.
24.
24.
I'm sorry, 24-12.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second on special use permit case number 24-12. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, special use permit case number 2413. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve special use case number 24-13.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second on special use permit case number 24-13. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to rezoning, regular public hearing items. Staff will make a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, public hearing, and action by the board supervisors. Item number 1, special use permit case number 2411.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Javier Barraces, Senior Planner, presenting special use permit case number 24-11. This is a request for a special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit per section 601.03W to allow an ADU in parcel 5.08 gross acres inside zone RA5 within the Yuma Mesa planning area at 3732 East Chaparral Way in Yuma, Arizona. The intent of the applicant, of course, is to have a second manufactured home for family members. This is the subject parcel, cross-hatching highlighted in red. This property is within the Pioneer Rancheros Unit Number 1. This subdivision was recorded back in 1972. Currently, the property is improved with a manufactured home, 1986, placed in 1999. Access, it's on Chaparral Way on the south. Properties on the north are zone RA5 as well, improved with site-built dwellings. Parcel number 7 to the east is RA5, improved with 2 manufactured homes. The second was approved with a special use permit back in 1996. Then we have parcel number 2, RA5, improved with a manufactured home. Parcel 1 is a vacant parcel. Parcel 765-15006 is improved with a manufactured home, RA5 as well. And then we got parcel 911. This is the location of an irrigation infrastructure, some well. Parcel 6 to the west is zone RA5, improved with a manufactured home. And then we have parcel number 5 to the northwest, zone RA10, improved with also with a manufactured home. And this is an aerial view showing the subject parcel outlined in blue. This is the current development of the area. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. Highlighted in red is the proposed accessory dwelling unit. This is a view looking north of the subject parcel from Chaparral Way. This is a view looking at the existing manufactured home. And this is looking on the east boundary. Behind that tree, there's a well, so the proposed accessory dwelling unit is going to be placed there, if approved. This is a view looking west at Chaparral Way. No comments received from owners of property within the zoning area. MCA is not in favor of this request. The Planning Commission recommends approval of a special use permit case 24-11. Staff concurs with that recommendation and subject to the following performance condition. The owner or applicant shall record a following disclosure statement within 60 days of board's approval, a navigation and race disclosure statement and agricultural disclosure statement, as well as the following operational conditions. The approval of the special use permit is based on the site plan provided by the applicant. Any change from that will need to be previously approved by the planning director. And number 2, the principal dwelling and accessory dwelling shall not be rented out separately. Mr. Chairman, that concludes staff's presentation, and the applicants are present if you have any questions of the applicants.
Any questions for staff? Or any comments? Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. Is it in the 75, 65?
Just barely outside. Chaparral Way is the cross, is the limit of the 65.
So it's not in the
It's not within the 65.
Okay.
Any questions for?
Yeah, it's 0.1 mile.
Half a mile within
half a
the
mile from
within
the
the
bombing
buffer.
range.
In BMGR.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Do we want to hear any questions for the applicant? No? Okay. I'll open up, thank you, Mr. Vargas. I'll open up the public hearing, and I know I have a speaker form from Lieutenant Colonel Tingle.
Chairman, Vice Chairman, Supervisors, regarding this agenda item, simply because it does exceed the current 1 per 5 and increase the density, we recommend denial. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Lieutenant Tingle?
No.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else from the public or the applicants want to come?
I'm Alan De Los Reyes. Like I said, I'm the occupant of the property. We've been there about 20 years. Lately, the kids have moved back, so the space is getting a little crowded there, and that's why we're going to get this extra home here that we want. And I just wanted to note that we do have the highway going through there now. So it makes it like there is a bit more space than from there to the freeway than from there to the right here at Avenue 40, the BMGR. Because after that, then the freeway's over here, so it's kind of like more space that they won't be using for the military.
Close it up, or can I?
I mean, it's just not practical for them to use. It's still their space, I understand that. As far as density of the property, we're already living there, so the density is not really going to change. It's just our density will, but not the property density of people there.
Yeah, your family's already living with you, so
Yes,
this,
that's
yeah,
what
and so what this would amount to is just spreading you out. a
Yeah,
little
more
bit.
living space for us, and we can, as we get older, they can take care of us, and that's what we're taking care of them now. Kind of yeah.
I know it's semantics, but have you considered just remodeling versus accessory dwelling unit?
Not really, we didn't, no. That house has been old for a while, so I don't know how long that's lasting and how it's gonna be. So we would have the new one, just in case, actually, like you said, that one falls apart, they can come back here and we have the same problem again, but at least we have something.
I have a question. Is it a mobile home that you're?
A manufactured home, yes.
Manufactured home
No.
already, okay.
Yes.
And now you want to build an accessory dwelling, a build, or is it going to be an addition?
Manufactured
Mhm.
Manufactured.
So it's not something permanent.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I
it's
think-
not going to increase the amount of people that are living there already, but it sets a precedent.
Mm. Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? And I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the board to entertain a motion. So there was no, this is a question for staff, no opposition from the neighbors and during the planning and zoning commission, there was no opposition.
Mr. Chairman, there was no opposition from residents, and there was only one of the commissioners against this request.
Rice, Mr. Rice, right? Mhm. Oh, this is hard.
I mean, to me, if it's only a manufacturing home, so it's not like a permanent home. And I know Supervisor Lyons, you asked the question of remodeling or adding. You can't add to, and it's just, honestly, it's unsafe.
Yeah.
When you do that, so to add to a manufacturing home.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready for a motion, I'll
I'm
make a
ready for a
motion, we
motion.
approve the item as presented.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Somebody
I'll go ahead
second so we
and
can-
second the motion. There's a motion and a second to to approve special use permit case number 24-11. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
3-2. So
Denied.
denied. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, and that's rezoning case number 24-21, and now the staff wants to continue this item to February 19th, so I'll entertain a motion to move this item to.
Chairman, I motion that we continue rezoning case number 24-21.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to continue rezoning case 24-21 to February 9th. All those in favor say 19th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to legislative issues. Alejandro.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Alejandro Figueroa, Director of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs. So let's start with the state. There's a lot going on in the state, as you probably know. Last week was the start of the legislative session. I understand Supervisor Pancras, he was out there. I imagine Supervisor Vice Chairman Lyons was there as well.
No, I was meeting with them afterwards.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you for clarification. So the governor delivered the annual State of the State address in a joint session between the House and the Senate. The theme of this year's speech was the Arizona Promise, where she looked back at her 2024 successes and emphasized her 2025 priorities. Key topics highlighted included education funding, an ESA voucher reform, water, and affordable housing. Then on last Friday, she published her budget, which outlines a $17.7 billion spending plan in fiscal year 2026. The governor's recommendation includes $795 million in new spending initiatives for fiscal year 2026. Select recommendations include lowering housing costs, providing childcare assistance, expanding Arizona's workforce, and increasing access to post-secondary education. Other notable items include probation salary backfill, which is $10.1 million ongoing beginning in fiscal year 2027, with $10.1 million provided by ARPA dollars in fiscal year 2026 to provide necessary funding for state funding probation officers. It also includes the SMART grant deposit of $13 million into the State Match Advantage Rural Transportation Fund. This fund assists communities in the 13 rural counties which funds to draw down federal transportation grants. Also important to Yuma County, there's a 6% Arizona long-term care system provider rate increase over 3 years. This would increase county contributions to the Arizona long-term care system. And for Yuma County would be a difference of $325,000 that the county would now be responsible for, in addition to what's already paying into that fund. Both the executive and the joint legislative budget committee baseline budget recommend increases in mandatory county contributions to the state's long-term care system. Needless to say, we are unlikely to see a final agreed upon state budget until May or June of this year. Nearly 900 bills and memorials and resolutions have been published to date. We at the county are currently tracking more than 150 bills. So sometimes, yes, we are drinking from a water hose with so many bills that we have to track and make sure that they don't impact Yuma County. And I make sure to share those with the Board of Supervisors on a weekly basis or sooner if needed. Some of the major bills that we're looking into, it's Senate Bill 1212, which was just dropped. The Senate Bill 1212 is biosolids land application immunity. Under Senator Dunn's bill, lessees on state lands must comply with federal, state, and local requirements on fertilizers, biosolids, and soil amendments, and they cannot be denied lease renewal for using these products unless there is a violation documented by ADEQ. So, state land agricultural lessees can continue to using biosolids in Yuma County if they follow ADEQ rules. No additional prohibition may be imposed without an ADEQ violation finding.
Say that again?
No additional prohibition may be imposed without an ADEQ violation finding. The issue with that is that ADEQ lacks the resources to be policing a lot of the biosolid operations in Yuma County. We have been in conversation with Senator Dunn about this, and he is planning to host a stakeholder meeting the next coming weeks, and we're planning to be part of it, obviously.
Attend, so would you make sure you let me know?
And we also have SB 1013, which would prohibit council of a municipality and the board of supervisors of a county to levy or impose any increase in assessments, taxes, or fees without a 2/3 vote from the respective governing bodies. The Senate Government Committee passed it this week on party lines 4-3. Yuma County and the CSA have taken a position of opposition. SB 1013 does not promote good government according to the CSA. It injects potential for conflict into what is already a fiscally limited, heavily state-mandated operating environment. The bill places an 80% threshold on county boards, higher than the state's 66%. While the state often shifts budget pressures downward, counties lack the ability to shift costs to other entities. So,
I have a question
yes,
on
ma'am.
this bill. Would it prevent us from being able to do what we're proposing for exceeding the spending limits? Would this bill prevent us from being able to do that?
I think that has to go to, well, obviously it probably needs a board approval, so it would have to be 2/3 now. So it would have to be 4 out of 5 supervisors to support that in order for it to go to the
voters.
ballot. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Supermajority.
Yeah, supermajority.
Which is different from what the state legislature does at the moment.
Well, and it only impacts 5-member boards. It doesn't impact 3-member boards because that only impacts medium and large counties. So Pima, Pinal, Maricopa, Yuma, Yavapai, right? And Mojave.
Correct.
Yeah, those 6 counties are the only ones that would be impacted.
So that's, we'll continue tracking those bills unless a bill has the support of both Democrats and Republicans. Especially on the election side, it is unlikely that they will make without a veto from the governor. So we'll wait to see if bills like 1011 get the support from any Democrats and have a good shot at getting passed by the governor or signed by the governor at that point. And if it makes it to committee, I'll make sure to bring it up to your attention. I'm working with Director Stalwart Bouquet on any election-related matter, and Kika as well. Moving on to the federal, as you know, a new president was sworn in this week. Donald J. Trump is now the 47th president of the United States. And on first day back in office, on January 21st, he signed several executive orders.
Executive orders.
Sorry, yes, I'm blanking out. Among them, there's some on border security, as you probably know. He declared a national emergency on the southern border, designated criminal cartels as terror groups, ordered the deployment of U.S. armed forces to the U.S.-Mexico border region. He also reinstated the Remain in Mexico program for asylum seekers and is seeking to resume construction of the border wall. He announced plans to create an external revenue service to collect tariffs from foreign nations, although that requires Congress approval, and is working to, or has announced that he will be imposing 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada on February 1st. He has implemented a hiring freeze across the executive branch and created the Department of Government Efficiency. Also in foreign policy, he renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And former Senator Marco Rubio now was confirmed by the Senate as the new Secretary of State. His undersecretary is the former ambassador to Mexico under the first Trump administration. So that's good news for us. Mr. Chairman, I don't have an international update, so I will skip on to the next part of my item if you don't have any issues with that. So this is something that I've been working on with the county administrator and our lobbyist, and it means to be more proactive in our legislative efforts. We try to define 25 different legislative principles for us staff and for the lobbyists to have an idea of where the board is priorities lie as far as the state goes. So I'm going to go over them as quickly as you, or as slow as you would like me to. There's 25 items, and we'll start off with workforce and economic development. This will give us a guideline to react faster to any bills coming through the House and State Senate. So workforce and economic development. The first one is support policies to promote a skilled workforce to meet the needs of Yuma County's key economic sectors, such as agriculture and the military, while fostering opportunities for emerging industries to thrive. This includes legislation and initiatives that encourage the adoption of smart agriculture technologies and wireless innovation. Number two, oppose and mitigate policies that can negatively affect the county's revenues or economic activity. Please feel free to stop me for clarification, or if you'd like me to remove any of them from our principles. Second, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I met with Alexis just briefly at our last CSA meeting. And one of the things that I asked her to do specifically was to work with any of the other consultants, specifically as it related to biosolids as an example, that were in opposition to what we were trying to accomplish. To reach out first, to try to find that middle ground before we wasted time with the Senate and the House. Because if they're going to stand in opposition and they know what the votes are, essentially I've asked her to count her votes before we wasted our time. So she said, for example, she was going to reach out to the individual who represented Phoenix and Tucson in the biosolids, because they too receive and process and make a lot of money off of it and don't necessarily have the agricultural base that we do. But if you'll just touch bases with her and make sure that she is communicating that to you, that she's had those conversations and that we know where we stand. If we need to have conversations outside of the conversations that we're already having, she can lay the groundwork and we know where we need to work. Expedite at the same time.
Thanks, sir. So ag, water, and environment. Obviously supporting the ag industry in Yuma County through policies to promote agricultural workforce and water security, protect and enhance Yuma County's water sources, including Colorado River allocations and groundwater sources. Support investment in innovations in ag technologies, water conservation, and water augmentation that benefit the people of Yuma. Ensure environmental and air quality policies that yield positive outcomes for the community and the county's operations. Tackle the mounting waste tire problem by pursuing solutions that ensure the large-scale removal of thousands of tires currently stockpiled at county disposal sites. As far as affordable and accessible housing goes, support state incentives such as the Housing Trust Fund and the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit to promote greater affordable options in the county. Maintain local control of county-level decisions on housing and infrastructure planning and development, and enhance flexibilities between incorporated and unincorporated areas. Support programs that prevent homelessness, provide emergency shelter, and offer supportive services for those experiencing homelessness in the county. advocate for solutions to address and mitigate the effects of unjustified rate increases in manufactured housing communities. Moving on to public safety, military, border, and immigration. Promote sustainable funding for police, fire, emergency services, jails, court systems, and other judicial functions. Advocate for the necessary infrastructure, resources, and personnel to support Yuma County's border and port of entries. Protect the county's military installations by coordinating land use planning to ensure compatibility, preventing encroachment, and enhancing communication between military installations, private property owners, and state and local governments. Moving on to public health and emergency preparedness. Advocate for enhanced resources and infrastructure for emergency response with a focus on heat-related events, flooding, and border security. Ensure that biosolids are managed in a way that prioritizes public health and the well-being of Yuma County residents. Support policies that minimize inconsistent, unexpected, and unsustainable increases to county-level healthcare functions, such as the Arizona Long-Term Care System. On transportation and infrastructure, support investments in high-quality broadband expansion projects in Yuma County. Promote projects that diversify energy sources in a manner that is considerate of the residents of Yuma County. Advocate for state funding to enhance and expand the county's transportation infrastructure, covering routes such as US 95 and Interstate 8, and to support improvements at the Yuma International Airport.
We have a new state transportation chair as of last week. Jen, she was the mayor of Gilbert previously. Can we make sure that Alexis reaches out to her and establishes contact with our priorities? Since we do not have a representative from Yuma County sitting on that board anymore. Gary Knight was the last one. And could we determine how many more years it is, because it's in a rotation for rural counties, when we have the opportunity to seek appointment of a new representative from the county?
YMPO can do that, or they let us know.
Well, last time I was involved with Mayor Nichols for the appointment of Gary Knight, in making that ask to the governor. I just wanted to see when, and I realize I don't want to step on YMPO's feet, but just when that's going to come up again, so that it's on our radar.
It won't be for a while. You'll be on.
I know, but is it 4 or 5 years more?
I think it's 4 years.
4 years? Okay. We'll just confirm that, but just make sure that she's talking to her.
Absolutely. Lastly, county operations, administration, and fiscal oversight. Minimize cost shifting attempts at the state level that negatively affect Yuma County constituents. Maintain local control of county level decisions and minimize state level preemption over county functions. Promote improvements to election processes that balance voter access and expeditious reporting results. Support efforts to improve pension systems and mitigate financial failures. Support county-sponsored community programs, including parks and libraries, to enhance residents' quality of life and educational opportunities.
So for items 1 and 2, I had that conversation with President Peterson last week on behalf of CSA, and he was not aware of how their, for example, their raises to the courts impacted the counties, to what extent. And so he was offering up some type of a county deferral, or that it had to be approved by the counties. And so we just need to follow up. Alexis can follow up.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So he offered that up as a solution, in that it was not approved until the counties ratified it. And so just because he offered it up, I want to make sure that we jump on it and that we have some skin in the game.
No kidding. okay?
We didn't
on
get a
that?
chance to bring that up at the meeting, Lynn, but that was what he offered.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, is there any item that you would like to remove or any item that you'd like to add to the list?
Yeah, well, no, my biggest thing is the two unfunded mandates from the state is my biggest, and
I think that goes hand in hand with mine, which is give us more opportunity to act more, home rule kind of thing.
Yeah.
Home rule has always been an issue that gets kicked around a lot, but being an arm of an extension of the state decides to do what to do at the legislative level, and we get to implement it. So it's kind of the more I think about it, the more government at the state level gets involved with county government, the worse it gets.
go ahead. I have a concern about the pension systems. They're functioning really well right now, and PSPRS, they want to change from a defined contribution back to a defined benefit, and that's going to cost the counties a huge amount of money. So I know that that's a big issue right now that we need to stay on. We need to stay on it and make sure that we're aware of what's going on, because taking on a defined benefit from a defined contribution back to a defined benefit is a huge expense. I know they want it, but I don't think that it is a viable option.
All right.
One more thing on elections. Can some of the election issues that they want to change, can they be mays instead of shalls? Like being able to vote early on Sundays or up to Monday of election day. That's a huge, Monday is a day where, at least in the rurals, you get everything ready and you get it all. So if they say may instead of shall do it on Monday, then the counties
He did
can
suggest
choose.
that language of may instead of
Yes.
shall.
Yes, we did.
But then ultimately, it comes back to us to make sure that we've got our counts in, because we were the last county in the state.
Yeah.
And so how do we prep the time? They added 2 additional days at the
They've
front
added
end,
2 additional days.
but it doesn't always transfer into collecting everything and processing on the back end.
Well, but we're the only county that only offers one early voting
Correct.
facility.
Correct.
So we need to talk to the recorder and see if the recorder would be willing to do additional voting, early voting places. One in South County, one in East County, and one in town, to allow for more early voting, so that when you end it on a Friday that's the last day you can
Right.
turn in your early ballots, a lot more people will have had an opportunity to vote in person.
May I again ask, is the recorder in charge of elections or we in charge of elections? Because if you're in charge of elections, I think we can request that those sites be.
However, the additional site.
Yeah, just remember, the more sites, more people and more equipment, so.
Yeah,
that's.
it comes with an additional cost.
It does come with a cost, but I'm sorry, but voting, the opportunity to allow them to vote is more
We have the ability
important,
to just ask for it.
especially if you're going to cut it off on Friday. And a lot of education is going to have to happen for people to understand that they can't turn in their ballot after Friday. So if that's the case.
In addition to that, every member is responsible for a certain portion of the budget, and they have an allocation according to the Senate President. And so it's important that our priorities are shared with our House and Senate members.
Mm-hmm.
And being on the budget, that will allow them to prioritize their specific requests for the county. or for their legislative districts. So we need to make sure that that is prioritized with every member.
Every member or every majority member?
Every member.
Okay.
And we're going to that, we have a state budget transportation requests for them
Okay.
as well that I need to get.
If they're on the budget, they get their requests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my next question is, are you going to be able to handle all that by yourself?
Well, he's got Alexis, and he's got.
No, I'm talking
And he's
about
got
that. I'm not
CSA.
talking about the request.
And he's got CSA.
Alexis and CSA working with you, right? Okay, Jacob. Yeah.
Okay.
Jacob,
Keep
Caitlin, and
asking
Zoe,
more.
yeah.
And he's through the first year of a baby, so now he's back. He's sleeping more.
I leave some mark.
She's 3.
Any more questions?
Any more questions?
Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you, sir. So, do we need to get a vote on this?
For what?
Just to adopt
On the
it?
legislative agenda?
The principles? No, just to
Those
adopt, so
principles.
that we can adopt the state legislative principles as presented.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the agenda does ask to review and approve the 2025 Yuma County State Legislative Principles, so I think a motion and vote would be appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the 25
State budget?
the 25-2025 state legislative principles, the enumerated 25 principles for the 2025 state legislative
So,
principles.
I'll
are you
second
wanting-
that.
Okay, well, there's another one, says review and approve Yuma County State Budget Transportation Request. Does that include it?
That's it. Mr. Supervisor raised that's a different item on,
A different item?
Yeah.
You want it? Well, that's a separate item.
that I'm gonna follow up with, right now.
Okay.
We have a
So
motion.
there's a motion and a second to approve the review, or what was it?
Approve the,
Approve
yeah, approve this.
Legislative principle.
legislative issues. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just interject real quick, I do want to acknowledge Alejandro's hard work on this. I think it's important to prioritize our legislative efforts, and he's taken the lead with this idea. Worked with our legislative advocate, and I know he's been in contact with you as well, so thank you.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Again, and it means to be more proactive and with the state legislature, our government affairs consultant and I sat down and with our several of our county directors and came up with 3 different projects that we'd like to propose to the board to request funding from the state. So the first one, we're keeping this to less than $50 million, the ask overall, throughout for the 3 projects, knowing very well that there might not be that much money available for funds for projects in the state. We're keeping it at $15 million. It's just, we'll see how that plays out. And we can always add more if we see that there's money available. But right now, we're going to start with US 95, the repaving project of a critical corridor passing through Somerton, the Cocopa Indian Reservation, the city of Yuma, Yuma County, which ultimately connects the city, the San Luis International Ports of Entry 1 and 2. This 12-mile repaving effort from County 17 through County 11th Street is essential for supporting the high-volume movement of consumer goods, ag products, workers, military traffic, including operations at the Yuma Proving Ground. Population growth at both the county and state levels has elevated the importance of US 95 as a statewide transportation link. Phase 1, which repaved 6 miles between County 22nd Street and County 17th Street, has already proven successful. To complete the repaving of the remaining 12 miles, a $12.8 million investment from the State General Fund, augmented by a 20% contribution from HERF, is requested. This critical funding will ensure the timely completion of the repaving project, enhancing roadway safety, supporting regional commerce, and benefiting travelers statewide. So what we did, we combined Phase 2 and Phase 3 into one single ask. I think that's going to be easier for legislators to digest and support. We've already established contact with Senator Dunn and Representative Pena about this. They seem supportive of the effort. But yeah, that will be the first project that I would like to get the board's support on or approval to request money for.
I move that we approve the US 95 repaving project, 12.8 million.
And we can, Mr. Chairman, Madam Supervisor, we can wait for the three and just approve them, the three of them, or we can do
Okay, let's
individually.
do all of them together.
So the second one,
Draw my motion.
thank you, ma'am. The second one is Somerton 9481 Bridge Replacement Project, which is $1.3 million. This bridge crosses the West Main Canal on Somerton Avenue between County 10 and 11th Streets. A growing residential and ag development in the surrounding area has significantly increased traffic volume, making the replacement of this aging infrastructure long overdue. This bridge is vital link for ag operations to supply food across Arizona and the nation. An allocation of $1.3 million from the state general fund, supplemented by local HERF funding, will cover engineering, design, and construction costs to replace the bridge. This investment is key for ensuring safe, reliable travel, maintaining robust agricultural production, and supporting the economic vitality of the region. Actually, and I'll say this, Representative Peña jumped the gun and she introduced HB 2562 to appropriate the $1.3 million from the State General Fund for fiscal year 2025, 2026. The funds are directed to the Arizona Department of Transportation, which will distribute the appropriation to, right now, the city of Somerton. I'm working out with I'm taking out the advice from county engineer and see if that's the money that comes to the county instead of city of Somerton. But anyways, the goodwill is there from Representative Peña. The investment that she's seeking supports the replacement of the bridge on Somerton Avenue between West County 10th Street and West County 11th Street.
That's right by Morgan's store, is that?
Past Morgan's store.
Just past it, yeah, okay.
And if you have any questions or comments on this, we have County Engineer Frank Sanchez here with us in case you need any further information on any of those two projects.
Will we replace it with something that doesn't need future expansion?
Yeah, I think that bridge, it's very narrow. I mean, if there's a.
If we're gonna replace it, we ought to replace it with a 4-lane.
Well, at least wider for agricultural equipment.
Yeah, Chairman Porches, members of the board, Frank Sanchez, county engineer. Similar, the concept of replacing the bridge is we're going to try to get away from the actual bridge structure, but put in a culvert where we would widen that to right of way, approximately about 100 feet. So in the future, if that ever needed to be widened, it'd be covered. So, similar to what we just did on Avenue 3E.
Frank, on those, because I know there's been some on that, you know, that I've seen that on that road on Somerton Avenue. But I've seen the water users doing it. Is that the case, or are we taking care of that, or how does that work?
Those crossings that you're referring to, that they have been performed by the Yuma County water users, but we have paid for them to do that. Those are smaller type irrigation canals and drains where they just have to go in there and put a small pipe to keep the flow going. This is an actual bridge that's crossing a main canal. Yeah.
So we'll do it.
Correct. We can reach out to the water users, see if they have any interest.
I don't. Yeah, no. That's. I've seen 10 people looking at one guy working, and believe me, the last project that I was aware of, it took like more than 4 months that I had to go around that. Everybody had to go around that bridge there. So that's, you know, that saying that, you know, only one person having a shovel, that I got pictures of that. So it is true. Yeah,
there is a limited time that they can cross because it's a main canal. They'd have to complete it during the water outage of about 10 days. So that's one of the reasons why I think they might not want to do it. And so we put it out to bid.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
In the last project, as you know, we've been working with CSA and I apologize for the typo there, about the waste tire cleanup and for our facility. So we had a conversation with Senator Dunn, and he was asking for a project for District 25. He asked about this, so we that's why I included it last minute, and I gave you a handout with this project on it. So Yuma County currently faces a buildup of more than 447,000 waste tires, which is the largest stockpile in Arizona, posing significant risks to public safety, the environment, and local agriculture. The potential for tire fires threatens groundwater resources and air quality, jeopardizing nearby agricultural operations and the health of our community. Yuma County requests a one-time allocation of $850,000 from the State General Fund to eliminate this hazardous stockpile and implement improved tire disposal practices that will prevent recurrence. This critical investment safeguards public health, protects the environment, and ensures long-term sustainability for our region. Now, if I may add that Public Works has done a great job of bringing that number down so significantly. Last year, we were looking at $1.3 million to clean up the whole site. But with the support of the Board of Supervisors, we've been able to bring it up to $850,000. Still a lot of tires there left. The CSA recently shared with us a research report they did on this issue across the state. We are scheduled to sit down and go through it and try to hopefully implement some of those best practices that they're recommending on that report. But yeah, the ask went down from 1.3, 1.2 last year to $850,000 this year.
Mr. Chair, I can tell you that with the tire issues, there's only one company in the state of Arizona that recycles them, and they don't charge each county the same amount. So, you know, if we did, based on our population, based on the number of tires, did something that would be best practices, it would help us, but some of those counties aren't going to want to do that because it's going to cost them more money. So even though, because for some reason Yuma's one of the ones that they charge the highest amount.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Brancresti, that is correct. And additionally to that, they take a long time to come out. So if it weren't for that, we could probably bring that to even less tires at that side. That's one of the issues we're bringing up to the state. You know, see if the state would be able to negotiate a flat rate for all counties and not have them charge different rates for every single county.
I agree.
And have a set schedule for them to come and pick up the tires.
A set schedule. That would.
And we also have Public Works Director here, Odas Kelly, who can, Fricky can answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, we also need to look into ADQ being a little more forceful. I've got two large tire storage facilities out in East County, and they're both under investigation with the Attorney General and ADQ, and they have been for several years, but they continue to bring these tires and junk in from California on an almost daily basis because they're not doing anything. The state's not doing anything with these companies. And it's just adding to a problem that's already, exacerbated countywide.
And if there was a fire out there, it would really impact.
Are these tires just the ones that they take to the?
That's the Yuma County Waste Tire Facility, yes.
That's North Gila Transfer Site.
No Gila. So that's just tires that residents take in?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we have tires from residents and probably state of California residents, Mexican nationals. So we have we're starting to keep track of that now and improve on that.
It's like our pollution.
Right. So we have, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but the counties that have the largest stockpile are in the California-Arizona border. So yes, that is an issue because of location, I think.
Yeah. I did have this conversation with Director Peters at ADEQ. So if you'll prepare another letter, I can turn it into her and just remind her. It was last month that we spoke about the tires.
Just nothing's happening.
How did the Public Works Department reduce that cost from $1.some million to $800,000? How did they do that? Did they move them out? What did they do?
Public Works for that.
That's what I asked, because you know, the state, I've been around a long time, and it notoriously punish you when you're successful at something. You know, instead of telling you you're okay, you're fine, you did a good job,
yeah.
they just go back and get whatever they can from you. So I want to know, how did you reduce that cost?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Kelly Fricky, Public Works Department. This last year, BRT allowed us an extra $200,000 for that one line item. So we had a budget of $670,000 for that line item. Currently, through the end of December, we've already used $400,000. So we've, you know, the one vendor is out of state. I'm not out of state, but is the only one in state. It's been hard to get them here consistently, but we have made significant progress. So, yes, we've used.
Any chance it'd be cheaper to just recycle the stuff? You know, put it on some of those roads that we think.
Josh, didn't you get us a price on the recycling?
Mm-hmm, he did.
The shredder?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. We looked at that probably, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. The problem is we would have more crumb rubber than we could use. And at that point, the vendor that Kelly mentioned was not interested in taking just the crumb rubber because there was the possibility of contaminants in there. They only wanted whole tires. So we would have a different problem. We'd have a huge stockpile of crumb rubber.
Did we explore donating it, or I don't want to violate the gift clause, but did we explore the transportation industry? Because I know they utilize a lot of that for repaving.
They do. The rubberized asphalt's kind of fallen out of favor with ADOT. The long-term tests don't show it wearing as well, so they're kind of we didn't find a huge market for it.
Okay.
Well, the reason I'm asking this question is because this is an ongoing cycle that it never ends. I mean, you get more and more and more, and you keep paying more and more and more, and it's just gonna, because of the looseness of the way that we deal with people dropping tires in there mostly. You know, you get a lot of tires from California, from other places where you go to discount out and they charge you $5 or some $10 to dispose of the tires. I'm not sure where they're disposing of the tires.
At our
But that's what I'm
facility,
saying.
yeah.
So if they're disposing of here, we're getting tires from people who come in from Washington, from all the states, and they just take their tires off and dispose it here. And it's not going to be an ending proposition, something that ends soon. So what I'm thinking about is, well, can we take advantage of the fact? Would it be cheaper to buy equipment and recycle? You know, do some recycling. We have a lot of roads that are just dirt that, you know, you can't invest a lot of money on. They're not public roads, or they're public roads, but they're too far away. You can't. I mean, we have a PM10 problem. Maybe we ought to put those together somehow, somewhere in the future, and look at our own recycling process, because it's certainly not working out. I mean, when you spend $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year, I mean, this will do it for a year, but we'll be back at it, you know, in 2 years from now. And the more you're successful at it, the less they'll give you. So, hey, we got to find a way to connect the recycling situation with the fact that we have a lot of tires from other places. I mean, it might be not fashionable now, but when it becomes fashionable, it's too late to start it. So I don't know. Maybe a pile of tires, a pile of rubbish is better than a pile of tires. I don't know. I mean, maybe we can find some use for it, I think. Anyway, we look at recycling as one option. I think instead of just going year after year and trying to figure out how to put it in the budget.
I know a couple of states are doing, Mr. Chairman, the oil conversion. So they're burning and extracting the oil from it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's a process that I think still is a little expensive, but it's gaining traction. And I think Mike Herrera with Solid Waste and Kelly and I have met over the last few years with an energy company that was looking at possibly building a facility in Yuma County, and they had some interest in our waste tires to burn for energy to fuel their plant. That hasn't materialized yet, but I think those kind of technologies are coming to where maybe in the future.
Then those companies are gonna want the tires. They're gonna come and get them. Yeah.
Market driven.
Kelly, just to make sure, on the comment that we just heard. Now, the vendors here do not take the tires out there to our facility.
Yes, they
Oh,
do.
they do.
The dealers do bring them to us.
Yes, yes, and the Marine base.
But I go and get a set of tires at let's say
And we pay the state recycling fee.
yeah, we pay. They charge me, any place you go and it's a disposable fee. But are they paying us or what? Because they basically,
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, they do collect that fee, and then they have to pay it to the state, but they keep those tires, they bring them in on trailers every Wednesday and Friday of the week. They submit their TR1 forms, which shows that they're registered and how many tires they're disposing. So.
They can be tracked, is what you're saying, but we'll go.
But we don't charge them.
We do not charge them.
Mr. Chairman, the process is the tire dealer collects that state imposed fee. Then they take, I think it's 10 cents or 10% off the top for their processing and paperwork. Then State Department of Revenue collects what's remaining. Then ADEQ takes a cut off the top for managing the waste tire program, which they don't have a program or manage. And then whatever's left gets doled out to the states based on the number of registered vehicles.
To the counties?
To the counties based on registered vehicles.
Yeah, to the counties registered.
To your point in your earlier discussion, that's where we fall short, is we have a lot of vehicles that are here from out of state buying tires that don't show up on ADOT's records. And so I don't think we get our fair share. I think we see that also on the vehicles not registered, but owned by the federal government. We have a lot of federal vehicles that are buying tires here, but they're not registered with ADOT either. So that money doesn't come back to Yuma County.
Yeah, Border Patrol, Customs, military.
Mr. Chairman, Alejandro, can you look at ADEQ's requirement for managing that program? And maybe that's
for the county?
Yeah, whatever funds they are allocated for managing the waste tire program, maybe that's something we need to address with the legislature. If they have a budget for that, are they managing it? How are they managing it? What are they doing?
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman Lyons, as far as I understand, that's money they keep in case there's a fire, they can act on it and they can, right?
Yeah, basically all they do now, so they would be able to participate in any restoration or firefighting costs if there was a fire at a tire facility. But they collect an annual report from each county, and then they do have some enforcement that they do, to Supervisor Simmons' point. But those are few and far between, and is my experience and what the records I've gotten from ADEQ show.
couldn't we start with our legislators to change? It should be like the taxes. It's based on the number of sales. What we get, it's the population, but that to go off what's registered, not every vehicle.
You go off sales, they're taking, like you said, they're getting rid of a tire when they buy a tire.
Yeah.
So that we ought to get that record.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Simmons, that fee, ADQ fee, is going to go up this year a little bit. The issue here is that, as you said before, we're getting a lot of tires that they're not accounted for. Now, one of the CSA findings was that Mojave County, for example, is charging out of county residents an additional fee for just going and delivering their tires at the station, at their site. We are required by statute to allow residents to drop 5 tires a year.
For residents.
For residents for free. right? Now, Mojave County is, I don't know if it's legal or not, I haven't discussed that with county attorney's office, but Mojave County is charging out of county residents an additional fee for dropping their tires there at their site. So
And
that's
how
one
do
of the
you
ways
know they're
they're
out of county?
With their license plate
license plates or driver's license.
Driver's license.
or
okay.
registration.
Yeah. So it's an additional step they're taking to manage their finances.
Oh, wow. That's not. a
Well, if
bad
anything
idea.
else, I just wanted to get a sense that we're not just asking for money this year, because we'll pay again next year and we'll pay again the year after that. We need to figure out a way to sort of handle that. It's either collect it from people that uses that service. Otherwise, we'll keep having that grow and it'll be, we'll catch up. If we get the funding, we'll catch up. But this better way would be to find out if there's a dedicated source of revenues that we can use to get rid of this problem. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Mr. Chairman, as was raised, we've tried this for 3 years now, and there's a lack of appetite by other counties to actually work on this because they just rather use their capital and other issues rather than this one specifically. They also have some issues. Half of the counties, for the most part, are in the red when it comes to their waste tire facility management, but they don't. Some of the larger counties don't really care about it as much as we do.
Because they don't get as much tires as we do.
Both have been at the CSA summit lately. This is a baby step for us, I guess. We'll see if they have, if Senator Downey is open to helping us with this one-time funds allocation to clean it up. And hopefully we can keep working on best practices to reduce the stockpile in future years.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'd like to add too that, last year we started requiring TR1 forms from the vendors. And we're going to look at them every year. But some things have come up with our vendor who they have let us know that they require them every quarter. So we're going to start requesting those TR1 forms every quarter and comparing their numbers to our numbers. And if they go over, then we would start billing them.
How much of a debt do they actually make a year on recycling?
How much of a debt do they make?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many tires do they actually remove and recycle?
So per year?
Oh, you mean
No,
the
no, no, no. I
company?
mean,
That company.
the state recycler, the single source. Do they remove them or do we just continue to accumulate?
Every year we have an overflow. So fiscal year ending 23, we brought in a total of 223,000 tires. And we had 140,661 remaining. And it's like that every year.
So, it only takes like 40,000.
So it's always a backlog.
To issue an order. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Vice Chairman, lastly, we're hopeful that bringing this up to the legislature in this way will spark a conversation that we haven't been able to get before. So hopefully it's a statewide conversation now.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that will conclude the presentation on the state budget transportation request for this year's state budget.
How would you like that motion?
If you don't mind reading it from the approving the 2025 state budget transportation requests for Yuma County.
Just item C, you didn't, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead. I'll make a motion that we approve Yuma County's FY26 state budget transportation request.
As presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
There's a motion and a second to approve Yuma County's fiscal year 26 state budget transportation request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Alejandro. And I know.
That's a lot of work.
Got an appointment?
I had somebody who was supposed to be ready. I don't think it was.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah, I moved it.
All right, so,
So we're going to
Um,
executive session.
we'll do summary current events, like in 30 seconds. Thank you, Liz. Next.
Thank you, next.
4-H Barbecue, Arizona Agribusiness and Water hosting at Britton's. We had a lot of legislators and all water entities there
Oh, no,
for,
that was, and you cooked.
I cooked ribeyes, 200 and something ribeyes with my team, and they were all consumed.
I really miss missing
CSA,
that.
Darren was there. CSA WIFA, Yuma Crossing National Heritage Area. I met with President Peterson, Carbone, and
Lynn?
Pena.
Yes, I was at CSA President's Training in DC for the first week of January. I was at the opening ceremonies of the state legislature and the governor's State of the State. As president of CSA, I ran the new supervisors orientation training at CSA, and then the board meeting on Thursday, and then I attended ACO's Political Action Committee meeting. So all kinds of state stuff.
You're done?
I'm done.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Simmons?
Attended an event out of Fisher's Landing. Also had a meeting with some residents in the foothills, referenced some zoning issues. Yuma East Board meeting, meeting with the town of Walton, town manager, and some of the residents out there over some issues they're having to see what the county can do to help them. Attended an event at the Moose Lodge honoring the national chairman who was in town.
Yes.
The agribusiness dinner as well, and a Navy League event out in the foothills.
Did you eat all your dinner, Darren?
Did I? Yeah, it was pretty good. I cheated. I had chicken.
Oh, wow.
I had a vision, San Luis, what's it called, vision group. The vision group, we met and discussed the improvements at the port of entry and how fast the lanes were moving, the need for more officers. We're getting ready for that NACO legislative, that we should include something having to deal with the fact that there's absolutely no way that they can open 16 lanes with the staff they have right now. So it's like you have a new facility, you just can't use it. So we're going to focus on trying to get something, a unified front that goes up into, considering all the attention that's being paid to the border, it should be easy to get an appointment where we're going to support that. So that's one of the things. And the other thing is, obviously, I intend to be out in Washington, D.C. in the National Association of Counties Conference. Is anybody else going? You are?
Maybe.
No?
For
Maybe.
what?
Washington?
NACO? No.
All right, well, just want to make sure that whoever goes, just sort of coordinates with us.
It's too cold. DC was freezing.
And I attended the CSA
Yes.
meeting last week, so that was the reception and the.
Oh, I
meeting.
forgot the reception, legislative reception. Yes, attended that as well.
Several of the legislators.
A
Ian?
lot of them.
Thank you, Chairman. Attended the local workforce development board meeting, county managers association meeting. Also joined Darren and some staff at the annual meeting of the Yuma East Lot Owners Association. Attended a kickoff meeting of the Yuma County Ag Tower Project. Attended a Chamber Board of Directors meeting yesterday. I had introductory meetings with the new county attorney, recorder, and assessor, and we'll be meeting with the new treasurer next week. And Josh Scott and I will be attending, and Alejandro and Robin Stallworth-Barquette, attending the ACMA Winter Conference. It's the Arizona City County Management Association Conference in Sedona this week. And it's the end of my term as the ACMA president, so I wanted to thank the board for your support during my term. And Josh and I will be accessible, of course, by phone or email if needed. That's it. Thank you.
All right. So I'll go ahead and adjourn the regular session, and do I need need a motion to go